Let's now talk about using precedence constraints in integration services. Now, let me just say this video, you can watch this completely in a different order than the rest of the course. It's totally fine. If you are, in fact, watching this outside of the course, this is from chapter 4. It's probably the 7th or 10th video in this particular chapter on working with tasks here. So if certain things that I do seem fast to you, it's probably only because for 3.5 chapters, 4 chapters, we have done those things, and it's kind of assumed knowledge at this point. So you might wish to look at the other videos in the chapter just to get comfortable with some of these. Now, what I want to do, I'm just going to create a generic package. So let me just create I don't even care what it's called. I'm just going to attach the package files with this video in the zip file if you download it from the learnitfirst.com website. So let's go ahead. We'll just create a simple package here. And I want to just show you a little bit about working with the precedence constraints here. For some reason it's going slow. All right, it's not really going to make too much of a difference which of the tasks that I use. However, the script task is going to make it very easy to force a failure. So I'm going to use that. So, by the way, if I do this, I'm hitting F5, and you see me switch into debug mode like that. You can see it ran. It just means that behind the scenes I hit F5. Sometimes I just get used to hitting F5, and you don't actually see the visual element of it, me hitting that button. So you see green. That's actually important. Green means success. So when we ran that particular task, the result of the task was success. We can change that actually. If I go to the script task and I'm using C# as that's just the default of when you drag the script task onto the surface, and I click the edit script button and I go down, you can see that the task result is defaulting to a success. That's how it passes back to SSIS what the result of this was. Well, we can easily change that, right? All we have to do, we have to take advantage of IntelliSense. So I can hit the dot, and you can see I'm either going to be able to choose success or failure. And it kind of grayed out there for some reason. So start typing. You can hit, by the way, just in case you're not familiar with this VS/VSTA interface, you can hit the control key plus the space bar, and it will auto complete whatever you are typing. A little handy tip there. And so now I've told it to fail, and so I come back, I say, okay, I hit F5, or I hit the green arrow, or I right click and say execute, and it comes up as red. And so those are the two outcomes of a task, right? Success or failure. So we then, when we're developing complex tasks, we can define that certain things must occur in order for other things to occur. So like I might have two sections here. I might have a, right here, we could say, let's just rename, run on success, and then run on failure. And so I would just come up to my main task, and I would say, you go to success, and I click back onto it, another little connector. That's actually what it's called, connector. And I drag it over here. But now look at this. Here are our precedence constraints. Okay, so let's actually just make sure my accent isn't getting into the way here. Precedence constraints. So we are defining what takes place preceding this task. What has to occur in order for this task to run? That's a precedence constraint. So I'm going to come over to this one, and I'm going to say, well, the previous task has to end in failure for this one to run. So I'm given a fairly simple logic here, sort of a branching flow. If script task ends in success, then it's going to go and run on the success. But if it ends in failure, right? Should have used green for the other one. Then it's going to execute the run on failure. Now, you want me to test it, or do you just trust me? You believe that that's really because it looks all colorful? All right, I'll test it. I'll show you. I think you probably believe me, but we'll test it. If you did not watch the previous video, we talked about how to do very quick and simple message boxes that we can use specifically for situations like this to troubleshoot packages or to just kind of test a proof of concept. So I'm going to go in, and if I'm doing it fast, then it's just probably because you didn't watch the previous video. You might want to go watch that previous video. So I'm just going to show, what should I say? This means your previous ran successfully. I don't know what to type in here, and just for fun, we'll make the run on failure be Visual Basic. So we'll change that one to VB. Satisfy the VB folks. Come over here, and hey, look, it's the same code. This means the previous task failed. Okay. Great. So that's it. We've just added a pop-up. I hit F5, and which one's going to run? Well, it did exactly what we asked. See, you should have trusted me. I knew what I was talking about here. Okay. So you get the basic idea. This is also where the sequence container comes in handy, because we might want a whole suite of things to occur when it fails. We might have an error handler part of our package. So we might want to send an email to someone. We might want an FTP that FTPs certain results. If something fails to load to the database, maybe we have a fail-safe location we want to put it into. We might want to take a backup. So we would come down to our maintenance plan task and do a backup of the database. I mean, there could be lots of things that we want to do that don't necessarily say, well, you know, when this one's successful, then do that, and when that one is successful. And by the way, now that I've kind of done this, might be easier to go up here and auto layout or set my horizontal spacing a little bit finer, align the lefts if I wanted to. Makes it a little cleaner package, right? So I might have all those things, and I'm not going to actually do them, but I want to group them together. And so what I could just simply go over here and I could grab a sequence container, and I just take these guys. Hey, let's move this one out. Let me delete him. And I'm going to take these, drag them into my sequence container, move my sequence container here, and let's just change this up. Right? Now we could just call this error handler. And so now I just have a fancy one little place that I can move all my error handlers. So the sequence container, you're going to use a ton with the precedence constraints. You're basically saying I want this group of tasks to run on failure in this particular case, right? Very, very simple. This is basic stuff. If this is seemingly all brand new to you, then you've got a lot of newbie type stuff that you'll want to work with. So stick with me in the rest of the course. So we'll walk you through it. You'll be comfortable with it. However, if you want to go on into some of the more advanced pieces, in the next video, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about dealing with situations where you might have, let's just take these out of the way, and where you might actually have 2 or 5 or 50, whatever you have, you might have 2 tasks, and you might want to have, if one of them is successful but the other one fails, well, that's okay. You still want to go forward. Or if both fail, then you want only the error handler to occur. So we're going to talk about different situations. One last little caveat here. If you are pretty advanced and you understand expressions and precedence constraints, we're actually going to cover those in chapter 5. So we're going to forego the discussion of how to do precedence constraints with expressions or to mix them together. We'll cover that in chapter 5. In the next video, we're really just going to talk about how to do effective logical ORs and how SQL Server is going to do this when we have something like this, a package like this, and just give me a second to lay this guy out here. And then I'll go ahead and I'll auto lay out my thing here to, God, that's horrible. That's just embarrassing. Sorry. I tried to make it prettier, but I guess it's not that easy to make it pretty. It's kind of a challenge, but we'll talk about what would actually happen here. Like, you may not know what happens in this case if this one succeeds but this one fails. Does that mean that this causes this to run because this was successful, but this causes that to run because of the failure? How do we deal with that? How does all of that work? Let's come back in the next video and let's talk about that.